Close your eyes and imagine yourself in another time. A world of towering castles, winding cobblestone streets, and whispering forests. A time of night and peasants, kings and plagues where every sunrise brought struggle and every shadow hid mystery. A time of damp stone walls, smoke-filled halls, and the ever-present scent of humanity. This is the Middle Ages. Imagine, if you will, the pale light of dawn creeping through the cracks of a wooden shutter. You stir, groggy, stiff. Your body aches not from a bad mattress, but from sleeping on a straw-stuffed sack. Laid on rough wooden boards, the air is cold, damp. There's no heating, not even a fireplace in your room. Only the breath of your own body and the musty warmth of a shared wool blanket, if you're lucky enough to own one. You sit up, your neck sore, your back already protesting the long day ahead. Your hands are grimy. You didn't wash them last night. You didn't wash anything last night, not because you were lazy, but because warm water is a rare luxury. There's no faucet, no mirror, no soap, unless you're wealthy. Hygiene, as we know it today, doesn't exist. Cleanliness is a seasonal hope, not a daily habit. You rub your eyes. The smell of the room hits you. The sour mix of sweat, smoke, old food, and yes, a chamber pot, sloshing quietly in the corner. There's no indoor plumbing. If you're lucky, you have a bucket for your nightly needs. If you're not, you walk outside in the dark to an outhouse, or the forest, or a nearby stream, where wolves or worse things might be lurking. Outside, you hear the first clang of iron on iron, someone sharpening tools, maybe a blacksmith already at work. A rooster crows, but it's not cute. It's loud, sharp, and somehow aggressive. A baby cries in a nearby home. A dog barks, chased by shouts. Life in a medieval village is noisy, but not with the hum of cars or distant highways. It's the noise of survival, the noise of animals, shouting, arguments, trade, and toil. Your clothes are rough wool, itchy, and stiff. You wear the same outfit every day. Maybe you have a second shirt, maybe not. Your shoes are thin leather, soaked through from the last rainfall. Your feet are always cold, always tired, always sore. There's no time to stretch or slowly wake up. There's no snooze button, no morning coffee. You are needed now. Whether you're a serf heading to the fields, an apprentice running errands for your master, or a housewife preparing bread before the oven's heat is lost, your day begins in labor. Let's say, for the sake of imagination, you're a peasant. That's the fate of over 90% of people in medieval Europe. You don't own your land. You don't have money. You work the soil, from sunrise to sunset, just to survive. And if your lord calls for taxes, you pay in crops. If there's war, your sons march to fight. If there's famine, you pray. And you wait. You open your door, stepping outside into a muddy path. The village is small, maybe 20 homes. Smoke curls from a few chimneys. Chickens dart around your feet. The well is already crowded with others drawing water. The air smells of livestock, compost, and damp earth. There's no pavement, no gutters, no sanitation. The streets are shared by humans and animals alike, and they are, well, not clean. Your stomach growls. Breakfast? If you're lucky, it's a crust of yesterday's bread, maybe soaked in ale. There's no cereal, no fruit juice, no protein bar, just hard, dry food, barely enough to keep you going. If it's winter, you're colder, hungrier, sicker. If it's summer, you're sunburned, bug-bitten, and praying for the harvest to be kind. And remember, every day is a labor. Every hour is a risk. Illness can strike at any moment. A scratch can become an infection. A cough can become a death sentence. There are no antibiotics, no hospitals as we know them, No emergency services. This is your life now, not just for a day, but for the rest of your life. The Middle Ages is not a fairy tale. Not for most. It is a time of hardship, resilience, and raw survival. And we've only just begun. As you lay back, eyes heavy, breath slow, think of what tomorrow might bring in a world without comfort, safety, or choice. And this is only the morning. The life of a peasant. Let's settle deeper into this world now, this rough, soil-covered world, and consider who you are. In the grand tapestry of medieval society, you are a thread of common fiber. You are a peasant, a villager, a laborer in the fields. One among many, one of millions who tilled the land, owed taxes to their lords, and prayed to heaven for good weather. Your status is not a question. It is a fact. You are born to the earth, and the earth is what you serve. You may live in England, France, the Holy Roman Empire, or even beyond, but wherever you are, your days follow the same rhythm. Wake, work, eat if you can, and sleep. Repeat, for years, for decades, until the day your body no longer rises with the sun. Your lord the landowner may never say your name. You may never see the inside of his hall, but your labor fills his stores. You till his soil. You gather his grain. In exchange, you are allowed to live on his land. You are not exactly a slave, but not exactly free. If you are a villain, you cannot leave without permission. Your children inherit your obligations. Your life is not your own. It is part of a structure, ancient and immovable. What does a day in your life look like? You wake with the sun, or before it. Your tools are waiting: a wooden plow if you're lucky, a spade or sickle more often. If it's planting season, your back bends all day. If it's harvest, your hands bleed. You move through the fields, not as a visitor, but as a fixture. Rain or shine, ill or well, your work does not wait. Your village may have a few dozen people. You know them all. Privacy does not exist. Secrets are rare. Everyone's life is entangled with everyone else's. You rely on your neighbors to help build your home, to share tools, to survive the long winters. But with closeness comes conflict. Fights break out. Grudges fester. And gossip spreads like fire in dry grass. Your home is small, a single room if you're poor, two if you're fortunate. Walls made of wattle and daub, a thatched roof, a dirt floor, no chimney. Smoke from the fire lingers in the air, stinging your eyes and clinging to your clothes. You may share the space with your spouse, your children, and sometimes your livestock. Chickens may wander through. A pig might sleep in the corner. Meals are simple and repetitive. Bread, barley, peas, and sometimes onions or cabbage. Meat is rare. Salt is expensive. Dairy spoils quickly. You eat to survive, not for pleasure. Hunger is a constant companion, especially in late winter, when the stores are low and spring has not yet arrived. Education? That is not for you. You cannot read. You have never seen a book. You may know a few prayers in Latin, memorized by sound, not meaning. Your calendar is marked by feast days and seasons. Church bells tell you when to work, when to rest, when to fast, and when to feast. Religion is the framework of your world. You go to Mass. You pay tithes. You fear sin and judgment. You may not fully understand the theology, but you know the rhythm of the holy year. You know the stories of saints, the words of the priest, the weight of confession. Heaven is your hope, hell is your fear, and purgatory is the place most expect to go. The church is not just a spiritual guide, it is also a power in your village. The priest may be the only literate man for miles. He may act as judge, advisor, and mediator. If you fall ill, he is the one who prays over you. If you die, he buries you and records your name. Your entire existence, from baptism to burial, is measured by rites and rituals you did not invent, but which shape your every year. Disease is never far. Coughs linger, fevers burn, injuries fester. Children die young, mothers die in childbirth. And when pestilence comes, as it will, entire villages vanish. You don't know what causes sickness. You may blame it on bad air, sin, or divine punishment, but you know it when it arrives, and you fear it. And yet, despite it all, there is community. There are songs, there are weddings, there is laughter around the fire, there is love between husband and wife, parent and child. There is pride in a well-dug ditch, a full harvest, a roof that holds. There is resilience and endurance. You are not weak. You are not ignorant. You are surviving in a world that tests you every day. This is your life, day after day, season after season. You were born to it, and unless something extraordinary happens, you will die in it too. Chapter 3. Inside the Manor. The world of lords and ladies. Not everyone in medieval society works the land. A small minority live far differently. Their hands are clean. Their meals are hot. Their homes are large, made of stone, not timber. These are the lords and ladies, the nobility, the ruling class. To be born into nobility is to enter a world of expectations, ceremony, and responsibility. It may seem glamorous from a distance, but life inside the manor is not as effortless as it might appear. Let us step through the heavy wooden doors of a stone manor house. Perhaps it is surrounded by a wall, with a gatehouse and a muddy courtyard within. Horses stamp their feet near the stables. Dogs bark in the distance. A few servants pass by, carrying buckets, firewood, or baskets of bread. Inside, the air is still cold, despite the thickness of the walls. The hearth burns, but only heats a portion of the great hall. Tapestries hang from the stone to dull the chill and show off the family's wealth scenes of battles, saints, or noble hunts. The floor is rush-covered, scattered with herbs to mask the scent of unwashed bodies and chamber pots. There is no plumbing here either, only a slightly more comfortable form of the same medieval reality. The lord of the manor is the local authority. He is not merely wealthy, he is a landowner, a judge, a soldier, and a vassal to a higher lord or king. He may have a dozen peasants, or hundreds, depending on the size of his estate. His wealth comes from the labor of others. His power is enforced by loyalty, tradition, and if necessary, force. Each day begins early. The lord rises, dressed by his servants. He eats in the solar, a private room for the family, away from the noise of the hall. He may spend the morning overseeing estate business, disputes among peasants, arranging marriages, collecting taxes, or preparing for travel. Sometimes he must ride out to serve in war, summoned by his overlord to provide knights in arms. The manor must still function in his absence. The lady of the manor is equally important. She runs the household, a task that would overwhelm many modern minds. She oversees the kitchens, the servants, the linen stores, the brewing, the baking, the accounts. If her husband is away, she may rule in his place. She is expected to be graceful, pious, and clever. She may be a mother of many, a widow managing land, or a young bride in a politically arranged marriage. Marriage in noble society is rarely about love. It is about alliances, property, bloodlines, a union between families, not individuals. A daughter may be wed by 14, a son betrothed before his voice deepens. These unions are sealed with dowries and oaths, and once joined, they are hard to escape. Divorce is almost impossible. A woman's body belongs to her husband. A man's life belongs to his lord. Chapter 4. War and the Medieval Soldier. Children are raised in expectation. A son might be sent away at 7 to serve as a page in another lord's household. If he shows promise, he becomes a squire. If he survives training in combat, a knight. A daughter is trained in music, manners, sewing, and scripture, the tools of a noble wife. Education is a privilege here, and often a tool of control. Latin, law, estate management, all taught to maintain power. Meals are richer than those of peasants, but not always pleasant by modern standards. Boar, venison, salted fish, spiced with imported herbs to show status. Forks are rare. You eat with your hands, using bread as a plate. Wine and ale flow freely, yet tooth decay and stomach problems are common. The food is heavy. Hygiene is limited. Bathing, even among nobles, is infrequent and more ceremonial than practical. Evenings are long. After the meal, music or storytelling may fill the hall. Minstrels sing of heroes and saints. Jesters perform. Chess is played. But under it all lies the unrelenting pressure of status. You must be seen, but not foolish. Noble, but not arrogant. Generous, but not weak. One mistake, one insult, one failed alliance, and your fortune can crumble. And yet, life here is safer, relatively speaking. You are protected by walls. You do not starve. You are not exposed to the same dangers as the peasantry. But you are watched, always by rivals, by servants, by the church, by your own kin. You have power, but not freedom. You are respected, but never fully relaxed. It is not a life of luxury as we know it. It is a life of performance, of pressure, of political maneuvering and quiet sacrifice. And beyond your walls, war always looms. It is easy to forget, in the stillness of our modern lives, how closely medieval life was tied to violence. Beneath the rhythms of farming, prayer, and ceremony, there was always war. Not a single grand war, but many small, local, frequent, and brutal. To be a medieval soldier was not a rare profession. In fact, for many, it was not a choice at all. Let us begin at the lowest rank, the common infantryman. A peasant levied from his village, handed a spear, and marched away. Perhaps you were given days, or even just hours, to prepare. You leave behind your fields, your wife, your children. You are not trained. You are not armored. You may have never walked beyond the next town, and now you march for miles to fight men you do not know for reasons you barely understand. Your gear is simple: a rough tunic, a wooden shield, a long spear. If you're fortunate, a rusted iron helmet. If not, you wear a padded hood and hope for the best. Food is scarce, rest is rarer, and fear constant. Knights fare better, at least in appearance. Trained from youth, armored in mail, later in plate, mounted on powerful horses. They are symbols of status, of chivalry, of military prowess. But even for them, war is not glorious. It is exhausting, dirty, deadly. The battlefield is chaos. Before the clash, men might stand for hours, in formation, sweating, shaking, praying. When battle begins, it is a storm of sound, shouting, steel on steel, screams, the roar of hooves and the crush of bodies. Lines collapse, weapons break, blood mixes with mud. There is no elegance in it, only brute force, panic, and survival. Wounds are often fatal, not because of the blade, but because of infection. A deep gash festers. A crushed bone cannot be mended, Arrows pierce organs. There are no medics, no anesthesia. Surgery is a last resort, performed with knives and fire. A soldier may survive the battle, only to die in his tent days later, alone and fevered. And war is not limited to open fields. Castles are sieged sometimes for months. Siege engines hurl stones and flaming pitch. Wells are poisoned, crops are burned, civilians starve. Disease spreads quickly in these enclosed, desperate conditions. And when a castle falls, there is no mercy. Slaughter, looting, and fire follow. Women are violated, priests killed, children trampled. It is not honor, it is annihilation. But war is also ritualized. There are codes, at least for the nobility. The chivalric ideal holds that knights should be brave, loyal, pious, and merciful. But ideals are often illusions. Ransoms are paid. Prisoners are traded. But peasants? Townsfolk? They are not afforded chivalry. They are victims, pawns, collateral. Even for the victor, the rewards may be meager. Spoils are unevenly divided. Glory fades. Scars remain. And peace is temporary. New claims, old grudges, shifting allegiances, they ensure that conflict never truly ends. A generation may grow up between wars, but few escape it entirely. Religion sanctifies this violence. Crusades are called wars cloaked in holiness. Men are promised forgiveness, salvation, heaven, and so they march across mountains and deserts to fight strangers in foreign lands. Many die before they reach the battlefield. If the sword ruled the body in medieval times, the church ruled the soul. No institution held more influence over daily life, thought, and destiny than the church, not merely a place of worship, but the central axis of belief, learning, authority, and even fear. To live in medieval Europe was to live beneath its watchful eye. From the moment you are born, the church is there. You are baptized within days, sometimes hours. The priest sprinkles holy water over your head, anointing you in Latin, a language you do not understand, but one that still holds weight. This act, unseen by you, marks your soul as Christian. Without it, salvation is uncertain. Your life continues under the guidance of the church. It teaches you what is good and what is evil, what happens when you die, what it means to suffer, to hope, to sin. The church tells you that heaven waits for the faithful, that hell waits for the wicked, and that most will pass through purgatory, a realm of cleansing fire, before they see the face of God. There is no alternative, no secular refuge, no other framework. To reject the church is not merely heresy, it is social death, punishable by exclusion, prison, or execution. Even your calendar is shaped by the church. Each day is marked by saints and martyrs. Each week is divided by the Sabbath. Each year by holy seasons. Advent, Lent, Easter, Pentecost, and countless feast days in between. You fast when the church commands. You confess when required. You marry, give thanks, and mourn the dead through its rites. The village church is a humble building stone or wood, with a bell tower, a small altar, a single priest. But it is the heart of the community. It hosts not just mass, but meetings, announcements, markets, and even trials. Within its walls you kneel, listen, sing, and weep. Its statues watch over you. Its walls hold the dead. Its presence shapes the living. But the church is more than your local priest. Behind him lies a hierarchy of immense power. Bishops rule over regions, archbishops over kingdoms, and at the top, the Pope, in Rome, is a monarch in all but name. He commands armies, crowns kings, and excommunicates rulers who displease him. His authority reaches from Iberia to the Baltic, from Scotland to Sicily. This power is spiritual, but also deeply political. The church owns vast lands. It collects tithes, 1/10 of your income, your grain, your livestock. It builds cathedrals that scrape the heavens and monasteries that dot every hill and forest. Its wealth is unmatched. Its literacy, nearly monopolized. Its records, the only ones preserved. Monks and nuns are the keepers of knowledge. In candlelit rooms, they copy texts by hand, Bibles, histories, philosophy, herbal guides, legal codes. Hours of labor for each page. No printing press, only parchment, ink, and patience. These monasteries are places of silence, contemplation, discipline. Bells mark the hours. Prayers fill the air. Many who seek a different life away from marriage, war, or labor find refuge behind these walls. But even the church is not free of corruption. There are greedy bishops, indulgent abbots, and priests who neglect their flocks. Wealth can rot piety. Politics can twist doctrine. The selling of indulgences payments for reduced time in purgatory will, centuries later, help spark a reformation. But in the medieval mind, the church is still the bridge between earth and heaven. It is the ark in a stormy sea. Its rituals are mysterious, its relics sacred. A splinter of the true cross, a vial of a saint's blood, a bone, a tooth, a cloth displayed in golden cases, believed to carry power, healing, protection. Pilgrims travel vast distances to see them, crawling on knees, praying, weeping. The church shapes art and music. The chants echo through stone corridors, soothing and solemn. Manuscripts bloom with colored ink and gold leaf. Even your name may come from a saint, your identity tied to holy history. You may not understand Latin. You may not read the Bible, but you trust or fear the words spoken on Sundays. You know the weight of sin. You carry the hope of grace, and in death, you are buried in consecrated ground, your soul commended to God. The church is not part of your life. It is the framework of it. Not everyone in the medieval world toils in the fields or prays in silence. Some live in places that pulse with energy-walled cities crowded with people, smells, and sound. If the countryside is the body of medieval life, the city is its restless, beating heart. Cities were fewer then, smaller than we might imagine today, but they were growing, slowly, unevenly shaped by trade, by pilgrimage, by conquest. Paris, London, Venice, Bruges, Cologne, Constantinople. Some shimmered with splendor. Most were dense, disorderly, and unpredictable. To enter a medieval city is to step into organized chaos. The streets are narrow, crooked, and crowded. There is no grid, no plan. Buildings lean into one another like tired travelers. Wood, stone, and plaster rise in shaky towers of 3 or 4 stories, overhanging above the street. Beneath them, shopkeepers call out. Bakers sell flat, heavy loaves. Fishmongers display their catch. Smiths shape metal. Butchers work animals brought in from the countryside. There are no public sanitation systems. Waste collects in alleys. People may dispose of household refuse from windows with a shouted warning. Animals roam the streets, feeding on scraps. The air is thick with everyday smells: cooking, smoke, and spices. But there is life here, so much life. People walk everywhere. Merchants from distant lands arrive with goods wrapped in cloth and protected by hired guards. You might see silk from China, spices from India, ivory from Africa, or tin and wool from England. Every item is valuable, a symbol of the vast and risky trade networks that connect the world. Money is exchanged in coined silver, gold, copper stamped with kings and crosses. Banking is emerging. Credit exists but is unreliable. Wealth can vanish easily through accident, theft, or unrest. Guilds form the backbone of the working city. These are more than associations, they are traditions, based on skill, loyalty, and shared purpose. If you are a carpenter, a weaver, a brewer, or a stonemason, you belong to a guild. It trains and protects its members and upholds standards. Advancing within a guild is a long path from apprentice to journeyman to master. Apprentices start young, often in early adolescence. They live with a master, working long hours and learning their craft. Journeymen travel to gain experience, hoping one day to open their own shop. Only the most dedicated and talented become masters. For women, city life offers both opportunity and risk. Some are skilled workers, brewers, midwives, laundresses. Others find work in service or trade. Cities provide more independence than villages, but less social protection. Reputation and relationships are crucial for security and success. The city also means law, both its safeguards and its consequences. City guards patrol after dark, closing gates and watching for danger. Theft and deception are concerns. Disputes are handled in courts or public spaces, with penalties meant to discourage wrongdoing. Shame and public discipline serve as tools of justice. And rising above all, the church. Cathedrals tower over rooftops, their bells ringing across the city. Monasteries and universities stand alongside markets and inns. In some cities, learning is traded like goods. Students study ancient texts. Physicians debate the nature of the human body. Slowly, ideas begin to move. But cities are fragile. A fire can destroy vast areas in a single day. A poor harvest can cause widespread hunger. A single infected ship can introduce disease that spreads rapidly. Cities are full of life, but also full of risk. In the medieval world, justice is not blind. It sees status. It sees gender. It sees land, title, and loyalty. It sees what it wants to see. And what it sees, it judges according to custom, tradition, and the will of God. There is no single system of justice in the Middle Ages. Law varies by region, by ruler, and by time. In England, there is common law, built slowly from precedent. In France, Roman and feudal traditions blend. In the Holy Roman Empire, canon law and civil codes intertwine. In the Islamic world, Sharia governs the faithful. And beyond all this, there are the laws of the church, spiritual, moral, and ever-present. But regardless of location, crime in the medieval period is understood differently than it is today. There are no police as we know them, no detectives, no forensics, no standardized procedures. In the village, crimes are reported to the local lord or reeve. In towns, there may be constables, often unpaid and part-time, responsible for basic order. The church, too, has its courts and its reach. Crimes like adultery, heresy, blasphemy, and moral failings fall under its authority. Secular and spiritual justice often overlap. and sometimes collide. To be accused is to be in danger, regardless of guilt. If you're a peasant and someone claims you stole a chicken, the burden is on you to prove innocence. There are few witnesses, no lawyers, no rights as we understand them. You might swear an oath of innocence and bring others to swear for you, men of standing who vouch for your character. If they refuse, suspicion deepens. If you're caught in the act, the process is shorter and harsher. Many crimes are settled by fines. Compensation is key. A stolen cow, a damaged field, a broken nose, all have prices. The law is not primarily concerned with the truth, but with peace, with restoring order. If two families feud, the goal is to end the bloodshed before it spirals into generational violence. But when crimes are serious, or when the accused is poor, foreign, or disliked, the process turns darker. There are trials of a kind. But in many cases, especially in the early medieval centuries, guilt is determined not by evidence, but by ordeal. One such ordeal is trial by hot iron. The accused must carry a red-hot bar of metal for a set number of paces. Their hand is then bound and sealed. After 3 days, a priest examines the wound. If it festers, they are guilty. If it heals cleanly, God has protected them. They are innocent. Another is trial by water. The accused is tied and lowered into a pool or stream. If they float, they are guilty, rejected by the purifying power of water. If they sink, they are innocent, though they may drown in the process. There is also trial by combat, especially among nobles. Two parties face off, often with swords or clubs. Victory is seen as divine judgment. God will grant justice through strength. But strength is not justice, and many innocents fall beneath this logic. The church eventually bans ordeals, arguing that it is blasphemous to demand signs from God for human legal matters. But the habits of thought remain. Justice, for most, is not a matter of rights, but of fate. Punishments are designed not only to penalize, but to deter. To make an example, thieves may lose fingers or hands. Traitors are hanged, drawn, and quartered, their remains scattered across the land. Murderers are beheaded or broken on the wheel. Heretics are burned. Adulterers may be flogged or shamed. Beggars branded. Witches drowned. But these are not universal. Sometimes crimes are forgiven by payment, or by military service, or by divine pardon granted by a relic, a pilgrimage, or a powerful lord. The rich and noble are rarely punished like the poor. They may be fined, exiled, or stripped of land, but rarely maimed or killed. Nobility grants protection. Clergy, too, have their own courts. To claim benefit of clergy is to be judged by the church, which may be more lenient, especially if you can read Latin, a skill few possess. Torture exists, but it is not every day. It is used in some regions more than others, particularly in cases of heresy, treason, or conspiracy. Devices like the rack, the thumbscrew, and the strappato appear in records, though often more as threats than tools. Confessions extracted under duress are common and suspect, but once spoken, they are hard to retract. Execution is public, a warning, a spectacle. Crowds gather in the square to see justice done. The condemned is paraded, shamed, sometimes mutilated before death. The gallows rise above the town gate. Heads are placed on spikes. It is not cruelty for cruelty's sake, it is theater. A message, Obey the law, obey your Lord, obey God. But beneath the blood and fear, there is also mercy. Some courts pardon the repentant. Lords intervene. Kings issue clemency. The church grants penance. And in time, ideas of justice evolve. Juries appear. Legal codes are written and refined. To be a child in the Middle Ages is to be vulnerable to nature, to disease, to fate, and to the decisions of others. You are born not in a hospital, but in a home, a hut, a cottage, a cramped room behind a shop. There are no antiseptics, no sterilized instruments, no doctors, unless you belong to the nobility. Birth is the domain of women, midwives, mothers, neighbors, all gathered around a straw-covered bed. The mother prays. The midwife works. The child screams, or doesn't. If it doesn't, the priest is summoned. Because even in these first moments, salvation is urgent. If a baby dies unbaptized, it is believed to linger in limbo, neither saved nor damned, but separated from the presence of God. So baptism happens swiftly, sometimes within hours. A few drops of water, a Latin prayer, a Christian name, and your soul is safe. But your body is far less secure. Nearly 1 in 3 children will not survive their first 5 years. Disease is everywhere in the water, the air, the milk. Fevers come and go with no warning. Coughs linger. Cuts fester. A small illness can become a death sentence. No one knows the science of infection, only that God gives and takes life as He pleases. If you live, you do not remember your early years, but they are not what modern minds might call childhood. You have no toys unless someone makes them, no books unless you are wealthy, no nursery, no stroller, no colored blocks. You learn by watching, by mimicking, by absorbing the rhythms of adult life. At 3 or 4, you are expected to help fetching water, feeding animals, gathering firewood, sweeping floors. Your parents love you. Of course they do, but they are practical, often weary, sometimes distant. They cannot afford to indulge because loss is always possible. Grief is common. Children die, mothers die in childbirth, and life must go on. By the time you are 7, you are not considered a toddler or a dependent. You are, legally and socially, a small adult. If your family is poor, you begin to work. Full days, every day, in the fields, in the kitchen, in the market. You are trained for the role you are expected to fill. A peasant's son will farm. A merchant's daughter may work the stall. If you are noble, you may be sent to another household to begin your education as a page, a ward, or a squire. If you are a girl, your future is clear. Marriage. Perhaps by 12 or 14. A girl is often betrothed long before she understands what that means. A dowry is arranged. A husband, usually older, is selected by family. Her role is to bear children, manage the home, and uphold the family's name. Her consent may be asked or may not. If you are a boy, your path depends on class. A noble son might become a knight or study at university. A village boy might take up his father's trade or be sent to a monastery. If your parents cannot feed you, they may give you to another family as an apprentice. This is not unkindness. It is survival. Yet, amid all this, there is joy. Children play. Always, everywhere they play. With sticks, stones, hoops, bits of string. They chase, they hide, they laugh, they make up songs and stories. Some toys survive in the archaeological record. Little dolls, carved animals, wooden swords, simple, fragile things that tell us something beautiful. Even in a world of hardship, imagination endures. Festivals are a delight. Holy days, feasts, harvest celebrations, maypoles and bonfires. Children dance, sing, and eat sweetmeats when they can. A bit of honey, a rare fruit, a crust of white bread delicacies they may remember for years. Education is rare, but not non-existent. If you are a boy of noble or clerical ambition, you might learn to read first the Psalms, then Latin grammar, perhaps Aristotle or Virgil. If you are a girl of noble birth, a governess may teach you manners, embroidery, and enough reading to manage a household. But for most, literacy is a dream. Oral memory reigns. Songs, prayers, stories told at night, these are your curriculum. Punishment is strict. Physical discipline is common at home, in school, even in church. To spare the rod is not seen as kindness but negligence. Children are expected to obey, to work, to grow up fast. Yet every generation sees a reflection of itself in its young. Parents hope, priests bless, and the community watches as small feet shuffle down dirt roads, heading toward a future they will inherit uncertain, but theirs. In time, a child becomes an adult, not at 18, not at 21, but whenever society says so. Through marriage, through work, through battle, through birth, through burden, through burden. In the medieval world, childhood is brief, but it is real. To understand the structure of medieval life, you must understand feudalism not as a diagram in a textbook, but as a living network of people, obligations, and land. Feudalism is not a law. It is not a single document or institution. It is a system grown slowly out of collapse. When the Roman Empire fell, central authority fractured, roads decayed, armies dispersed, and people began to look not to distant kings, but to the strongest man nearby, the one who had a castle, and men-at-arms, and the ability to protect. From this emerged a pattern. A lord would grant land a fief to a vassal, who in return pledged loyalty and service. That land might be a village, a forest, or a wide swath of countryside. It came with wealth, in the form of harvests, rents, and labor. But it also came with responsibilities, military aid, counsel in the Lord's court, and sometimes money. This system built a chain of loyalty. At the top, a king. Below him, his great lords, dukes, earls, counts, barons, powerful men who ruled entire regions. Each of them might have dozens of lesser vassals, who in turn had their own followers. At the bottom were the peasants, serfs, villains, and freemen who worked the land but owned none of it. Everyone served someone. Everyone owed something. Even kings were not absolute. A weak king could be ignored. A strong lord could rival a crown. Alliances shifted constantly. Power was local. Castles mattered more than crowns. And the most powerful lords were often rulers in all but name. Let us consider a lord's world more closely. His home is not always a grand castle. In earlier centuries, it may be a wooden hall, surrounded by a palisade and ditch. Later, stone fortresses rise with keeps, towers, battlements, and moats. These are not just homes, but symbols, statements, fortresses to awe, to defend, and to control. The Lord's Hall is the center of power. Here he holds court, settles disputes, hears petitions, and dines with guests. His table is set with trenchers of bread, meats, wine, and stews. Dogs lie beneath the benches. Minstrels play. Torches flicker. It smells of smoke, sweat, and roasted flesh. His land stretches far beyond the walls. He does not farm it himself, peasants do. They owe him labor, rents, or a share of their harvest. In return, he offers protection from bandits, invaders, and rival lords. This is not charity. It is a transaction, often enforced with violence. He may have knights trained warriors who serve him in exchange for their own small fiefs. They are his teeth and claws. He may call on them to fight, to escort, to intimidate. Each knight is expected to bring arms, armor, and sometimes other men's squires, archers, or even a small retinue of foot soldiers. When war comes, and it often does, the Lord must answer his king's call. He may ride to battle with a banner, a lance, and a polished helm. Or he may resist, side with a rival, or scheme for more land. Feudal bonds are sacred, but fragile. They are sealed by oath, a ritual known as homage, in which a vassal kneels, places his hands between those of his lord, and swears loyalty. But oaths can be broken. Lands can be seized. Power always tempts. The church, too, owns land and acts like a lord. Bishops and abbots hold fiefs. Monasteries control entire valleys. And while their weapons are words and relics, their wealth is very real. A pious noble might donate land to save his soul. A shrewd one might place his son as a bishop to extend his influence. A lord's wife, the lady of the manor, holds power in his absence. She manages the household, oversees the estate, and handles the accounts. If her husband is away at war or at court, she becomes the de facto ruler of the domain. Some are formidable in their own right, intelligent, literate, politically savvy. Others are married young and kept in the background, used to forge alliances through blood. Children of lords are raised for duty. Sons are trained in arms, daughters in diplomacy. Marriages are arranged not for love, but for land. A single union might unite kingdoms or ignite a war. And though the feudal world is built on hierarchy, it is not always stable. A famine can weaken a lord. A rebellion can cost him his lands. A war can kill his heirs. Fortunes rise and fall. Titles shift. Estates are divided, conquered, or lost through intrigue. Still, for centuries, feudalism shapes the structure of Europe. It defines who holds power, who works, who fights, who rules. It is a web, not a ladder. A world of overlapping loyalties and fragile bonds. A lord may serve a king, but also plot against him. A knight may fight for justice, or for plunder. And a peasant may live under three masters: his lord, his bishop, and his king. To the imagination, the knight is the soul of the Middle Ages, clad in shining armor, galloping across the field on horseback, noble and brave, sword flashing in the sunlight. Protector of the weak, defender of the realm, a figure of romance, legend, and honor. But the truth, as always, is more complicated. To become a knight is not merely to fight. It is to be part of a culture, a class, and a code. It is a lifelong path, shaped by training, duty, and performance. Not everyone who fights is a knight, and not every knight is noble. The journey begins in childhood. At 7 years old, if you are the son of a noble family, you are sent away. Not abandoned, but placed in the household of another lord to begin your education. You become a page. Your duties are humble. You serve at table. You learn to read. If your household values literacy, you carry messages, hold the Lord's sword, clean his boots, but more importantly, you begin to absorb the knightly way: courtesy, obedience, physical training. You are taught to ride, not simply to sit a horse, but to command it, to control speed, direction, and temperament. You learn to wrestle, to run, to dance. You begin to play at arms with wooden swords, padded armor, and endless repetition. You watch the older boys, the squires, and dream of their power. At 14, you may become a squire yourself. Now, you are an assistant to a real knight. You help him dress for battle. You carry his shield. You tend his horse. You polish his mail. You accompany him to war, though you do not yet fight in the main lines. You practice with sword and lance. You learn to aim a couched spear while charging on horseback, a skill that may take years to perfect, and slowly you earn the right. At around 21, if you are deemed ready, you are dubbed a knight. The ceremony may be simple or grand. In some cases, it is deeply religious. You keep vigil in a chapel overnight, confess your sins, bathe to symbolize purity. A sword is blessed. A lord or king touches your shoulder with it, declaring, "In the name of God, Saint Michael, and Saint George, I dub thee knight." You rise no longer a squire, but a man of arms and honor. You are now bound by the code of chivalry. It is an ideal more than a law, a set of values: courage, loyalty, honor, piety, and the defense of the weak. You are meant to serve your Lord, protect the innocent, be courteous to women, and wage war justly. But ideals are not always reality. Knights can be brutal. Many are little more than heavily armed bullies, enforcing their lord's will, extracting taxes, and seizing what they desire. Tournaments, once friendly competitions, become deadly spectacles, where knights break bones and draw blood for fame and reward. Some knights crusade. They take the cross, ride to the Holy Land, and fight under banners of faith. Others raid, pillage, and kill in the name of profit. Chivalry may speak of purity, but it coexists with greed, violence, and pride. The armor of a knight evolves over time. In the early Middle Ages, a knight wears a mail hauberk, a tunic of interlocking iron rings, heavy and flexible. He carries a kite-shaped shield and a straight, double-edged sword. By the 14th century, full plate armor becomes common, crafted by skilled smiths, articulated at the joints, polished to mirror brightness. A knight in full harness is nearly impervious to arrows, blades, and blows, but not invincible. Mounted combat is the knight's realm. The lance charge is devastating, a couched lance, driven by the speed and weight of horse and rider, can splinter shields and break lines. In melee, the knight fights with sword, mace, or axe. War horses, destriers, are trained for battle. able to trample, kick, and lunge. They are not common riding horses. They are weapons. A knight's gear is expensive, very expensive. Mail, then plate. War horses, attendants, squires, camp followers, shields, surcoats, bridles, weapons. A poor knight may go into debt just to prepare for war, but success in battle brings spoils, ransoms, plunder, land. A captured knight may fetch a fortune. So too may his armor. Despite the violence, knights are admired. They are the stars of their age, chronicled in romances, sung in epic poems. Arthur and the Round Table, Roland at Roncesvalles, the Song of the Cid. The courtly knight, serving a lady from afar, becomes a literary icon, brave, chaste, doomed to love without hope. But in time, the knight declines. Gunpowder changes the battlefield. Pikemen defeat cavalry. Fortified towns resist sieges. Standing armies replace feudal levies. By the 15th century, knights are no longer the dominant force in war. They become symbols, titled, ceremonial, respected, but no longer feared. Still, the image remains. The knight riding beneath a fluttering banner, shield upon his arm, sword at his side remains etched into the imagination of the world. A reminder of a time when war was personal loyalty. Yet, not all who enter remain. Some find the discipline too strict, the isolation too deep. Others seek the monastery as a refuge from family troubles or the chaos of the outside world. Despite its seclusion, monasteries are deeply connected to medieval society. They own land. They wield influence. They provide charity. They educate. Pilgrims stop to rest. Kings and nobles visit. Some monks become advisors, diplomats, or chroniclers. But always, the core remains, a life dedicated to God, through prayer and work, silence and community. In the heart of medieval Europe, amidst the clamor of battle and the bustle of village life, there exists another world, one of silence, study, and sacred ritual, the monastery. To many, it is a place apart from the world, a refuge, a center of learning, a spiritual fortress. Here, men and women dedicate their lives not to power or wealth, but to God. Monasticism is ancient. By the Middle Ages, it has evolved into complex orders with rules, hierarchies, and missions. The most famous is the Rule of Saint Benedict, written in the 6th century. It outlines a life balanced between prayer, work, and study. The motto is ora et labora, pray and work. A monk, or nun, rises early, often before dawn. The day begins with matins, the night office a series of prayers and chants. The rhythm of their life is set by the divine office 8 times daily. They gather to sing psalms, read scripture, and seek communion with the divine. Silence is golden here. Speech is limited. Meals are simple bread, vegetables, sometimes fish. Flesh meat is usually forbidden. They fast regularly. Their clothing is plain coarse wool habits, hoods, sandals. Monks and nuns work with their hands. They tend gardens, raise livestock, copy manuscripts, brew beer, make cheese. Their labor sustains the community and contributes to the wider world. The monastery is also a center of knowledge. Before universities, Monks preserve learning. They copy books by hand in the scriptorium, each letter carefully painted, each page illuminated with gold and color. They record history, transcribe sacred texts, write chronicles. In the flickering candlelight, the monastery becomes a beacon of culture in a sometimes dark world. Monastic orders vary. The Cistercians favor austerity and simplicity, living in isolated abbeys. The Cluniacs emphasize elaborate worship and art. The Franciscans and Dominicans focus on preaching in poverty, engaging with towns and the poor. Monastic life is demanding. It requires obedience to the abbot or abbess, to the rule, and ultimately to God. A novice undergoes a period of training, testing his or her commitment. Vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience bind them. Amidst the vast, often quiet countryside of medieval Europe, towns emerge lively, bustling centers where people gather, trade, work, and live. These towns are the heartbeat of medieval commerce and social life, a sharp contrast to the rural monotony of the fields and forests. A town is a place of walls and gates, often surrounded by wooden palisades or thick stone ramparts. The walls offer protection from bandits, armies, and rival lords. At the gate, guards watch day and night, controlling who comes and who goes. Inside, narrow streets wind between timber-framed houses leaning at odd angles. These homes are crowded, often 3 stories high, built with wattle and daub or stone, with thatched or tiled roofs. Overhanging upper floors create shadowed alleys below. The smell is a mixture of wood smoke, cooking fires, animal pens, and the less pleasant presence of waste, which is often thrown into the street. The town square is the heart open, noisy, colorful. Market stalls burst with goods, fresh bread, salted meats, cheese, vegetables, spices imported from distant lands, bolts of cloth in vibrant colors, iron tools, pottery, and leather goods. Merchants call out their wares. Buyers haggle over prices. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer rings through the air. Children run, laughing and playing amidst the crowds. Trade in a medieval town is regulated. Guilds, associations of craftsmen and merchants oversee the quality of goods, training of apprentices, and conduct of their members. There are guilds for bakers, weavers, shoemakers, butchers, and many more. These guilds are powerful, often controlling entire sections of the market and setting prices to avoid ruinous competition. The town's economy depends on fairs and markets. A weekly market might serve the immediate region. Larger fairs, held yearly or seasonally, attract merchants from far away, sometimes even from other countries. These fairs are vital for the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture. The town is also a place of social mixing. Nobles visit for hunting or diplomacy. Clergy attend churches and chapels. Traveling entertainers perform in squares and inns. Scholars may lecture at emerging universities. And common folk share stories, gossip, and news, some true, some exaggerated. Yet, life in towns is hard. Sanitation is poor. Disease spreads easily in cramped quarters. Fires are a constant threat. Houses built mostly of wood can be destroyed in hours. Crime exists. Thieves, pickpockets, and worse, lurk in shadowed corners. Justice is administered by local officials, sometimes harshly. Still, towns offer opportunity. For peasants seeking freedom from the Lord's land, towns are attractive. They can buy goods, rent houses, and sometimes claim the status of a free burgher after living in a town for a year and a day. This freedom means protection under town laws and exemption from serfdom. Women in towns often work as merchants, craftswomen, innkeepers, or laundresses. While medieval society is patriarchal, town life sometimes allows women more economic roles and legal rights than in rural areas. The rhythm of town life is marked by religious festivals, market days, and the ringing of bells. Churches and cathedrals rise high, their spires visible for miles, symbols of faith and community pride. In this vibrant but challenging world, medieval towns are the crucibles of change, places where medieval society begins to transform toward the Renaissance.